to Attitudes with Andy. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are talking with an absolute weapon of a person. He is a mountain bike rider. Yes, that's right. He goes from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain in the fastest period of time. I saw some videos and it's absolutely gnarly. Not only that, but he is a world traveler. Growing up, he has lived in many different countries, which makes him a very, very worldly person, and you can meet a lot of different people. Not only that, he has a motorbike and a van and also a podcast called On Track Experience. But above all, he's a beautiful human who is wanting to mentor and change people's lives. And I absolutely love that. And I'm ready to have some chats. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andy. That's a good intro. I like this. You've done some research. One thing I've got to ask though, because you know it's Attitudes with Andy.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm the attitude?
You are the whole attitude.
Okay, I thought that because when I saw that, I was like, does that mean like it's your attitude? And you just seem like the nicest person with no attitude. So I'm like, then it made me really think. I was like, wait a minute. It's me. I'm the attitude. And then I was like, I got to come in hot there. Start being all sassy.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
Actually, I've got two motorbikes.
Which, by the way, guys, Dean hasn't named his motorbike, which is a little bit weird.
No, but I named my van.
Oh, yeah. Valerie the van.
Valerie the van. But no, the motorbike hasn't got a name yet. If anyone wants to comment what I should call my motorbike.
Yeah, please let us know.
That'd be awesome.
I suggested Rod, but he didn't like it.
I don't want to ride Rod. I just don't want to do that. This is not my thing. You can ride Rod. That's fine. I'll allow you to ride Rod, but yeah, I don't want to ride Rod.
It's taking a weird turn.
Oh, it's gonna keep doing that. It's just we're in it now.
Oh, we love that. Okay, so first of all, I know that I explained your job really badly just then. So could you please explain what your profession is?
What I do?
Yeah.
So I'm a professional athlete. I race downhill mountain bikes, which is kind of like downhill skiing. It's like you start at the top, fastest person down the bottom. You go over roots, rocks, kind of everything, jumps, everything they can kind of throw at us. Mainly compete in Europe. That's like, it's massive over there. It's slowly growing everywhere around the world, but Europe's like the big kind of mecca for it. So I race there normally 4 or 5 months a year. I do a little bit of racing in Canada and America as well. We do have World Cups and we have had the World Champs in Australia. So I spend a lot of my life, traveling around racing mountain bikes and just throwing myself down a hill. It's pretty insane. Like, it's one of those things you do it long enough that it kind of becomes normal. But then sometimes I'll watch other people riding, especially when I'm at a World Cup, and the speed that people go is actually quite ridiculous. Like when you're in it, when it's like kind of like helmet vision, when you're in the thing, it seems a lot more chilled than when you're watching it. Like even me personally, when I watch it, sometimes I just step back and go, especially when I see people that I know I'm faster than go past and scare me. And I'm like, I'm going quicker than that. And that's scaring me watching that. So it's like this weird thing in your mind where you kind of like, you can't get too much in your own head and you just kind of need to do the job. Because when it does work, when you do get in like a flow with it all, it's so fun. It's like, and it's pretty cool to know that if you can put effort into something, like so much effort, you can become the best in the world at something. And I think that's a cool thing. Like when I get in this like flow state almost when I'm riding, and it's just like, sometimes I'll stop and I'll be like, that's the best that this can be done kind of thing. And that's a weird concept to come to terms with, that like when you are riding at your best or doing something to your best ability, that it's not only your best, but it's actually the world's best. And that's like, you kind of got to pinch yourself and go, oh shit, like I kind of made it to that point, which is, it's a cool feeling. It's really cool. But like, I just took up surfing since I've moved up here, and that's kind of, it's nice as well to be humbled, to be put back to square one. So we're starting from scratch again in something else, which is also really cool because each time I go surfing, I get like 10% better or 20% better. Where when I go riding, it's so incremental that it's like whatever of a second. Because we race and the times are super close. So normally it's around a 3.5 minute track. And within that 3.5 minutes, sometimes like the top 10 will be split up by a second.
Jesus.
Or like 2 seconds. Yeah. People win races all the time by like 0.001 of a second. It's nothing.
Whoa. And I'm assuming you're not on the track at the same time.
No. So one rider will go and then their run will be like televised and filmed. So you'll see their whole run top to bottom. And then once they finish, then the next guy comes down and then that'll be televised until the fastest guy gets down. So you do qualifying and that sets you up from slowest to fastest. And then as the riders come down, obviously the times get quicker and quicker.
So is it best to go last?
It's depending. It's weather dependent, but normally, so in qualifying, everyone goes down in their ranked order of where they stand from like the race before, the year before. So you come down, and then the fastest goes at the very end, so it builds up a bit more hype in the race. So
Okay.
if the fastest guy came down first, then it's like everyone else loses, and it just doesn't look good. So it's good to like build the story of like, oh, this guy's beating, and then this guy's, and it just kind of adds to it. So
Yeah.
but sometimes it's better to start earlier because the track won't be as beat up and destroyed.
True.
And then other times it doesn't really matter. And then sometimes it'll rain halfway through like the finals, and then that'll throw a spanner in the works. So it's very weather dependent, but obviously you can't know what the weather's going to do. So you just got it, because you get points for qualifying as well and finals. So it's like, just go as hard as you can and the rest will buff out.
It's absolutely nuts. Like, I remember Dean and I met this like wholesome yoga morning thing by the Good Human Factory.
Yeah.
And then I was just chatting to you and I was like, oh yeah, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, this is what I do. And you showed me a video and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, is that sped up? And you're like, no.
Yeah, because you met me when I was behind the camera. I was like filming the thing for Cooper Chapman, like his little mindful morning thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
I like to venture out and do other stuff. I hate being like, I guess, put in a box of like, you're a downhill racer, that's your whole identity and everything you do. I like to kind of expand into different things just for the sake of it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm really into photography now, videography, so I thought I'd come help Cooper out and shoot that. But I love when I meet someone in a setting that wouldn't really relate to, like, I guess people perceive me to be. Like I always like I said, I travel in my van and I'm kind of always hanging out with like hippies doing that kind of stuff. And it's funny, I'll be like with a heap of van lifers and they're like, so what do you do? And then I'm like, oh, I'm a professional athlete and all this stuff. And like, oh, I didn't expect that. It's
Yeah.
just like, I think it's always good to like surprise people in a good way like that. Like always be a bit different in your own personal way. Like add your own flavor to something that you're doing and don't get so like, okay, well, all mountain bikers do this, so I'm going to do that. Or like all podcasters do this, so I'm going to do that. And you get kind of stuck in this rut. I'm like, you've got to be yourself. And I think being yourself is sometimes scary because you will separate yourself from others. And that's the kind of scary thought. Like obviously the safety in numbers, but I think that's when you're going to get like the true happiness that you want out of that thing that you're doing when you are your like genuine self.
Mm. Do you put your self-worth on how you perform in your biking?
It's yes and no. Like I guess more recently that I've kind of separated myself from the whole results based mindset and try and like look more at a experience based mindset. So like the experience of going there and competing and being around all these good people, because this is the thing. You can look at a whole weekend, everything. Just say I go to Switzerland for the first race, meet up with my like all the fans there, my team.
Do you have like fans over there in Europe?
Yeah, there's fans. Yeah,
No
it's pretty cool.
way.
Sometimes people come up to you and like there's a bit of a language barrier, but they'll be like Lucas. Everyone thinks my name's Lucas Dean in Europe, which is quite funny.
You're like, it's Dean Lucas.
Oh no, I don't care. Just they're happy. Just let it go. But so I'm in like Switzerland in this beautiful part of the world. All my team's there. All my friends are there, riding my bike. All this good stuff. And then just say, for example, I get a flat tire in the finals run or something. And it's like now I look at that whole weekend or whole week as being a negative. And you put all this value into that result, which I think is kind of just bullshit, because it's like there's so many positives to take out of that weekend and that experience that just because something didn't go your way at the end, how can you look at that whole thing as being a failure? And I definitely looked at that in the past as being like when something went wrong like that, as like everything sucks, no result, my life sucks, everything's shit. And then you don't look at the positives, you just look at the negatives. But then in the same kind of breath, it does feel bad to not obviously perform and do your job and ride or perform to the level you know you can. So it is always there, but I think it's just how you deal with it and how you use that moving forward and don't get so like stuck on it. And also I hate when, like, if I'm pissed off or angry about not getting a result, I just remove myself from the setting until I'm okay enough with it that I'll come back into it. Like I hate when you're in, just say within your family or within a team or whatever it is, and you come in and you're angry and you throw your helmet, you're pissed off, and then it just brings this like energy around everyone that is then everyone's down, everyone's pissed off, everyone's walking on eggshells. Like I'll just leave, internalize it, think about it, meditate on it, come to terms with it, and then come back and be like, it's all good. we'll get it next one. And I think that's a really good trait. Even in relationships, I kind of separate myself until I can process it enough to come to terms with it and not just like act out of emotion. I think that's just like never really a positive thing, but definitely something that's taken me years to figure out. Like as a young kid, I would get pretty emotional and worked up about stuff. And I see a lot of kids like that now. They think it's the end of the world. And like, you're just a kid. You're just riding a bike. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's going to be cool if you did well, but if you don't do well, life's still good. Don't stress too much about it.
So you have had moments where you get really angry if you don't get a certain result?
In the past, I definitely got more worked up about it. Like I remember finishing races, and the thing I got annoyed at is when I don't give it my all. Like if I don't give it my all, if I don't give it 100%, that will weigh on me.
What does that look like, not giving your all?
Just not pushing as hard as you know you can, or not preparing enough as you know you should. And it's that when you're in a race, you kind of, you know how much you can give. And I feel like when you don't give that, that's when I get let down. Like I've had races where I've won and I feel like I haven't given anything, and that really frustrated me.
Wow, so you didn't feel satisfied even though you won?
But I've had races where I've crashed and I've been over the moon.
Wow.
Because I threw everything I had at it. And I think that's really what anyone should do in anything. Like if you throw everything you have at something, like everything, if you put 110% into something and it doesn't work out, you should be happy because you flipped every stone, you looked at every option, you did everything you could, and that wasn't the thing. But you know now, where if you give it 60, 70% or whatever and it fails, you're like, oh, it's almost like you create this wiggle room that you're like, oh, I didn't give it 100%, so it doesn't matter. But then that over time, I think will weigh on you more than if you gave it the 100 and it didn't work. Like I remember I had this race at World Champs and I gave it everything and I was actually doing quite well, and then I crashed towards the bottom.
Oof.
And I finished and my dad was there, and my dad came up to me and he's like, oh, buddy, and like kind of like real sad and down about the whole thing. And I just had this huge smile on my face. I'm like, how good was that? Like I was killing it before I crashed. And straight away I flipped his emotion of being like, oh, buddy, down and whatever, to like, oh shit. And I think that's something that I love doing, is like people almost like want to give you permission to feel a certain way because of a certain event. And I always say, like, don't give your friends permission to feel anything but good or excited or happy. Like, don't give them permission to feel shit. Like, just say your friend's girlfriend cheated on him or something, and he's like, oh, like you got every right to be pissed off at her and all that. I'm like, why are you putting that energy or that mindset into him? Because then he's just going to be pissed off at her. I'm like, how's that helping anyone? How's that helping anyone? How's that making him get over it? It's like, you have every right to be happy and move on and like live the best life you can. That's what you should be telling your friends, not, oh, you can be pissed off at this person. Because it's like, once you forgive that person and surrender to the idea of like, this happened and that's all good and I've got to move on and keep doing that. Once you do that, it's just going to make it so much quicker to heal and become the person you should be and move forward from that. But if you dwell on it and just stay in that anger state of like victimizing yourself, it's like, oh, poor me, this happened. It's just bullshit that just keeps on like going in a circle where you never like get out of it. So I think, yeah, you need to break that. I think your friends need to help you break that by not like encouraging it.
How old are you?
What's that? How old am I?
Yeah.
28.
Oh, I feel like you're a wise old soul.
It's all the travel. Honestly, that's probably like a massive part of advice I can give to anyone. I was lucky enough to travel a lot as a kid. Like my dad traveled for work and he brought us with him. Like, thank you, Dad. But,
thank you.
But it was just a thing. Like I was never really book smart. I was never that smart in school, and I just never really had the want to either. Like it was just something that didn't interest me. I didn't really care for it.
Yeah,
but
relatable.
But yeah, when I traveled, you just learn things and pick up, and you become this certain person, which, like I'm super happy with the person I've become through the experiences I've had and where I've gone and what I've done. And yeah, it's just been from learning from other people. And I think that's why I'm so attracted to doing my own podcast and coming on other people's, because it's this really personal way to meet someone and then share your ideas that then in turn help other people in such a positive way. And I get so much fulfillment for like my words helping other people and just from my experiences, and then people coming and saying, hey, I heard this thing you said, and then I put that into my life and that's helped me in a way. And it's just like you're planting all these like trees everywhere that grow and flourish, and yeah, I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. You definitely, I listened to a podcast you were on and you spoke about how you traveled a lot when you were younger, and I was like, this makes so much sense. You've met lots of people because you're very like personal and you can kind of like pick up on what people are interested in, and yeah, it's very,
and you become
very good skill.
You become so accepting. Like because I grew up in small country Victoria, and I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, but like a few people, that whole like country mentality, like I don't want to go anywhere. I don't need like this is home, and who cares about them? And like probably a little bit of racism and stuff mixed in with that, and like kind of like my people and all this kind of stuff. And I got taken out of that very young, and I got taken all around the world and met some like incredible people from all different cultures. And then you understand that like, oh, we're all amazing and we're all incredible, and there's so much you can learn from all these different people. So I always had that, and I don't ever remember a time that I didn't. And that's just like obviously a blessing from being able to travel as a kid. Like, and I think a lot of kids don't get that, and they get in their group, and then they get this like group mentality is like, oh, we don't want to play with them, or we don't want to go see that, and what's the point? And it's just like, just break out of that, go talk to someone. They probably got a cool story that might help you in your life. So yeah, just like venture out and be curious, be really curious.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And you get to see how other people live their lives, and you realize, because Australians are a lot of them haven't traveled much, and when you do travel, you're like, oh my God, this is an example of a different way you can live a life. I'm saying this from somebody who, I went to 12 schools and I traveled a lot when I was younger as well. So I'm like, you're one of those.
Yeah.
I can see it all over you.
Well, I think it's the whole thing of, it's like there's no right or wrong, it's just different. And I think once you accept the fact that just because someone doesn't do something the way you do it, it's not wrong. And I think when you're growing up, a lot of things like, oh, that's the wrong way to do that. Whether it be what you eat, or where you like how you stretch, or how you exercise, or who you hang around. And it's like, no, it's just different. And different's not bad. Different's just different. And once you accept that, I think that becomes a lot more, you become a lot more open to accepting more things as being different, and not like, oh, that's wrong, so I don't want to do it because it's wrong. It's like, no, it's different. Give it a try. You don't know what you don't know. So maybe if you try that different thing, it might be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
So open the door, like see what's on the other side.
So I want to talk about, and we were speaking about this off air, but how when we met, you were saying how you were really loving mountain bike riding before you were doing it as a job.
Yeah.
And then you were doing it as a job, and it completely changed the vibe of it because you were getting paid for something. I would love to talk about that because, as I said, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It really fucked with me.
Yeah, so the whole thing that, like when I mentioned that to you, it's when a passion becomes a job. It's a really tricky thing that I don't think anyone knows how to deal with until they're in it. And with mountain biking, it was like, you kind of like the dog chasing the car. It was like, okay, I want this thing. And it was something that I just fantasized about since I was probably 10, 12 years old, around then. When I was like, obviously I got a mountain bike because, well, 10-year-old doesn't want a mountain bike. And then I started riding, and then I got better at it. And then I started racing, and then you're like, oh my God, like I'm good at this. I can get better. And then at some point you're like, maybe I can get sponsored. Like maybe people can like give me a bike and help me out and all that. So that becomes a goal. And then you achieve that goal. And then the next is obviously become a professional and get paid to do it. And I remember 2015 was one of the best years of racing of my entire life. I was on a factory team, but I wasn't getting paid any money. They were paying for my flights, accommodation, and giving me bikes.
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 19, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I think I would have been 19. So still a kid, but was getting helped out. Oh, yeah, 19 or 20. Yeah, 19. No, I think it was 19. Anyway, getting helped out by them, but it still didn't feel like I'd kind of made it. It just felt like I was like getting a bit of help. Anyway, had a really bad year the first year I was with them because I just had a lot of pressure. I had a teammate that was a world champion from the year before. I felt like, oh shit, like a bit of imposter syndrome in a way. And I just didn't perform very well. And then the next year I was like, all right, feel a bit more comfortable, know the team a bit more, like let's get our shit together and get it happening. And ended up having one of the best years I've ever had in racing. And so I would have been 20. I would have been 20 this year. So I had one of the best years I've ever had. I ended up finishing the overall 12th in the world, and I got a podium at one of the races. So I got third at one of the races, which was, I think, a big surprise to a lot of people. And it was funny because it was like the guy in front of me was, one of them was the greatest of all time, and the other was like a 7-time world champion. So like best guys.
He was quite literally the GOAT.
Yeah, Greg Minnaar. So he was the guy that won it, and he actually became the GOAT on the day that I got the podium. So that was like, so he like won the most World Cups that day. So I was like, cool to be a part of history in that.
Whoa.
But I was just, this young kid that was just having fun racing his bike. And then because of this success, the year after I got offered money to race, which I was like, yep, 100% I'm going to take it up, and it's going to become a career and a job. But it kind of killed it for me. It felt like it became this thing where I was chasing the car and I'd finally caught it, and then I kind of didn't know how to react to that. And I remember I was going riding, and I felt like this pressure that I had to go riding. That someone was like, "We're paying you, so you've got to do this now." Where before it was like, "I want to do this because I want to achieve that goal." And my mindset completely shifted, and I had one of the worst. No, it would have been the worst year of racing of my entire life. Was 2016. So 2015 went from I was the fastest like up and coming kind of not junior, but like that generation of guys, and I was like the fastest one of them coming up. And I went from that to then the next year I just like crashes. I think I crashed at the first round, and then I like hurt myself at the second, and then I broke my heel, and then I came back, and I was just nowhere. And I didn't even like, I was nowhere. I didn't want to even be there. Like I just remember being in this spot where I was like, I don't want to do this, and I
Whoa.
almost was like, it was such a weird thing to finally achieve the goal that you've set out since you're like a young kid, and then you get it, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know if I want this. And there was a point where I was like, I almost just wanted to like just pack it up then and there and just be like, okay, this isn't for me. I don't want to do it. And then even in 2017, it was still tricky. I hadn't come to terms with it, and I didn't have the best year again. I got a second, but it was rain. Like the weather came in, and it wasn't really a second. It was like the weather came in for the top 30, and I was just lucky enough to go in the dry. But that kind of sparked something in me that was like, oh shit, we can kind of still do this, and that kind of motivated me towards the end of the season. And then at the end, I remember going to my team at the time, was like, hey, like, what's going on next year for 2018? And they kind of came back to me and said, hey, we don't know what's happening. Like, we're not sure if we want to like continue we don't know if we want to sponsor you again. And that kind of like hit me like a ton of bricks. It went from this whole idea as like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it, to then like, we don't know if we even want you to do it kind of thing. So it wasn't like the decision was in my hands. Now it went into theirs. And I remember they told me this at the last race of the season. They said, we don't know what we're going to do. And they had a 2-week gap from the time they told me that to then the time they gave me this phone call. And in that time, I was just like, very much like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? What are the positives? What are the negatives? And I really like went over it in my head. And I just remember thinking like, I have more to give than what I've been giving, and I need to like at least commit to it and see what I can do if I can commit everything to it. And I just had this like profound moment of just like, okay, if they do ring up and they say, hey, we want to put you on the team again, I'm going to put everything I can into it. Anyway, I got a phone call from the team manager. He's like, yep, we want to put you on again for 2018. And I was like, oh my God, like a bit of a relief. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it properly. Remember the next day, went and saw my coach in Mount Beauty, Joel Panozzo. And I was like, yep, I'm going all in. Like, let's not mess around. Like, let's do it properly. And I just remember from that point in that preseason, just working my ass off, like just putting everything just to see like where I'd stack up.
How'd that feel, working your ass off compared to like not wanting to be there, not putting in effort, all of that?
It was good. It was good to be back in that mindset of like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly. And it paid off. It paid off massive. It was, this would probably have to be the greatest feeling I've ever had at like being on a mountain bike. And we got to the first race, which was in Croatia.
Oh.
And I just felt good. Everything was flowing and working. And I ended up going 4th in time training that we have on the Friday. And that was like, oh shit, like we're going good. And then in qualifying, I got 2nd, which was like, that was like my best qualifying result ever. And I remember because they changed the start order around. It was this weird thing which didn't really make sense, but because the guy that qualified 2nd wasn't in the top 20 from the year before, they put him down before me. So that meant I was going down last. So I remember being at the top of the hill and like literally the last person down at this race in front of like all these people I'd looked up to my entire life, and all these like just the whole industry was like eyes on me. And I just thought back to like 4 or 5 months ago when no one was even calling me on the phone to be like, hey, we want to put you on our team. Like literally there was nothing. Like it was radio silence. And in that 2 weeks, I remember that feeling, and that feeling created this mindset that then took me from nowhere to somewhere. And I just remember that feeling of being at the top of this World Cup, being like, I went from no one wanted to put me on their team to now I'm the last person down the hill and everyone is looking at me right now. And that feeling of like going from somewhere where you didn't think you were like good enough or no one wanted you to then the man was such a like refreshing, good feeling. And I just remember like just that, and I ended up getting third in the race, which I was still really happy with. I didn't win, but just that fact of just being there. And I think that's the thing. It's like if you are somewhere in your life right now where like people don't think you're good enough and like you've lost and like you're in a shit spot, like just think about where you want to be and like really think about your why and why you want to get there, and then start putting in place the things that will get you there. And you don't know where that will take you, but you need to make like a conscious effort to be like, hey, I'm not where I need to be. This is where I want to be. Who can help me get there? Let's fucking go.
Oh, I feel so G'd up from that. I was literally fully picturing you on the top of the mountain, looking down, having a deep reflection. That's so true. You need to remember those low moments. I feel like you need to remember. I will screenshot I screenshot really beautiful messages, but I also screenshot when shit goes wrong or stuff like that, because I'm like, I want to remember all of this.
You got to remember the shit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You go.
No, I was just going to say, I just remember that 2 weeks so clearly. I remember the feeling of like how shit that was, not having anyone call me. Like no one called me. No one wanted to put me on the team. No one wanted, I was just nowhere.
And now you're like,
And then just being at the top, I was just like, okay, we did it. We got back here. And it's just like this thing, because I don't know if other athletes feel this, but I always kind of have this feeling as like, am I good enough? Like, am I good enough to still be here? Can I still like mix it with these guys? Like, because the level is massive. Like, it's so high at a World Cup. So it's like you kind of question your ability from time to time. And then you come out and do something like that. And you're like, oh no, I still got it. And then that confidence builds on itself. So.
Yes. You're like proving to yourself, I do belong here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Far out. Wow, that really G'd me up.
Yeah.
So after that moment, then did the phone start ringing? You had people.
Well, it was funny. I was at the bottom after I did that run. I was at the bottom, and this was also a good moment. And this I'm not going to name who it was, but a goggle sponsor came up to me, and they're like, oh, like, hey man, like, oh, congrats on the third place and all that. And I was like, oh, thanks. And he's like, oh, what are you doing for goggles this year? And I was like, oh, I've got a deal with someone. They it's actually funny. The goggle brand Scott, the year after, I actually started riding for their brand on bikes as well. So it's like their relationship through the goggles kind of stemmed on to then the whole bike sponsor. And yeah, so now I'm still with them to this day.
Wait, the people who re-signed you even when you'd had a bad year?
No, that was Intense Cycle. So I re-signed with them for that year. But then after that, for going into 2019, I ended up changing to a brand called Scott. But they sponsored me with goggles. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, so this other goggle sponsor came up to me and said, hey, do you have a goggle sponsor? I was like, yeah, this Scott have helped me out. And they're like, oh, you should have hit us up. And I was like, I did.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, what do you mean? They're like, I sent you an email. Like to the guy that's saying it. I was like, I sent you an email. And he's like, oh, are you sure? It must have been sent out to someone. I was like, no, it was you. I got your contact off this guy. I sent it to you. No reply. And I just was just like, that was just felt so good to just like give it back to like, and it was like, I get it. Like I wasn't anywhere. But just say like, oh, hey man, like your results aren't really there. Sorry, we can't do anything. Or just be like, sorry, we can't do anything. But the fact that I got no reply, and then you come up to me in person and be like, oh, hey man, you should have hit us up. And you're like, I didn't get a response. But just to say that was just like the
best. Because like you're like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but it's like the little fuel inside of you. Like I have a list called the fuck you list.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's not actual genuine hate to any of these people, but it's like just people who have like maybe said no or ignored me or not believed in me. And now is because it's like, it fuels you. I don't know about you, but like this list, I'm like, watch me.
I've got a quote that I came up with that relates to that, where I say, tell me I can and I'll try. Tell me I can't and I will.
Yeah. Like it fuels you, okay?
Yeah.
And whatever fuels you, I don't actually mean any hate to these people.
Yeah, but you like it's you want to prove people wrong.
100%. Like it's so satisfying.
People that doubt you want to prove wrong. And that's like all those teams that didn't want to put me on, that was like, okay, no one wants me, watch this.
Yes.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it can be used in such a positive way if you use it that way, because it can also just bring you down and destroy you. Like it's the thing. It's like it can go either way. If you let that negativity like soak into you and like really actually affect you, then it can do the opposite and destroy you, or you can use it to lift you higher than you've ever been before.
Yeah, like fuel your drive even more.
Exactly.
Huge. So you're still racing now?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And how are you feeling about racing now?
It comes in waves. It comes in waves. So after COVID happened, it was a big kind of shift where I didn't actually go overseas in 2020 to compete. And it kind of opened my eyes to, like, I guess it just opened my eyes to like the broader life, like what else is out there and like what else you can do and like where you can get happiness from and fulfillment. And I actually opened up about a story on Gypsy Tales, which then impacted a lot of people in a positive way. And I realized that my fulfillment comes more from helping others overcome struggle in their life and just see life in a better, more positive way. That's where I get my happiness from, not really from racing anymore. But racing obviously is a vessel for me to then reach more people. So racing is still, and I still do enjoy it too. It's not like I don't enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it to the extent that I used to. We'll put it that way. And I think when you get older, you just get more mature and there's other things that come up that you want to be passionate about, whether it be even just like family and stuff like that. And it's not just the racing fact, it's the fact when I race, I'm away for a long time. And for example, like my brother has a little girl and I don't see her that much, and stuff like that didn't used to affect me as much as it does now. Like if you don't see someone for a long time and like they're just a different person, it's just like, oh shit, like how much value am I getting out of racing a bike and how much value am I losing out of missing someone kind of grow up in a way. So it's not just when you say the racing thing, it's just it's such a complex kind of thing. But I still do really enjoy it. And I do go have moments like where I'll be riding and it'll just all be clicking and I'll just be having fun. And I was like, this is the best job ever. And then other times you'll be away for 2 months and you miss your girlfriend and you miss your family and the racing isn't going as well as you would have hoped. And you're in this random country in the middle of nowhere and you kind of just like you feel a bit isolated and alone. So I go through, it's big highs and big lows. It's like you can have the best day of your life racing and being around all this crowd, and then the next day you've got a broken bone in the middle of nowhere and no one cares. So it's like this hard thing to, I guess, navigate for a lot of athletes, because especially Australian and New Zealand athletes, because like I said, we compete mainly in Europe, so we're away from home for larger amounts of time, and the language barrier, and there's a lot of things that come into play. So I still do love racing, and I still think there is more that I want to achieve before it's over, but I also see like a very bright future in chasing something else in the future.
What do you reckon that will look like?
Well, like I mentioned before, like I'd love to travel the world and interview people and go to really remote places and just like learn from other people and just kind of live life, like just tell other people's stories and expand my knowledge of myself and just see the world. Like it's such an attractive sport to me when I first got into it, because it was like you're traveling the world and someone's paying you and you're seeing all these amazing places. And now after doing it for 10 years, we go to pretty much all the same places, which doesn't excite me like it used to. Like this race that we'll go to, the first race of this year is in a place called Lenzerheide in Switzerland, which is an amazing place. Like it's absolutely beautiful. But I've been there for like 8 years, and it's like you go there, you fly into the same airport, meet up with your team, they drive you to the track, you recover, you walk the track, you hang out in the car park with your team in like your team truck and everything. You do your runs, you do your race, you get on the next plane, you fly to the next place, which will be Leo Gang, which I've been over 10 years now. You go to the same hotel. It's like it's this thing where you're not really seeing the world. You're just seeing the same thing that you've already seen. And as beautiful it is, once you see something, it's just like I kind of want to see more in a way. So that's why I want to, and I think I've always had that bug to travel and explore and see places. So I think if I could travel and do that and then also meet interesting people along the way and then tell a story doing that could then in turn help other people in their life in some way or just excite them or do something, I think that's like a pretty cool, fulfilling job. So I think eventually that's something I'll definitely do.
So you find helping people more fulfilling than bike riding?
Yeah. I feel like the reaction you can get out of someone, like I always thought about this, like if you watch me ride my bike really fast, it's like, okay, you look cool and kind of inspire someone to do similar things. But like if you can use the platform of what that bike has then brought you to then inspire someone that can change and alter their life in a positive way, like that flows on way more. And I've noticed that like when I did this podcast and I opened up about a few things, that the reaction I got was just pretty overwhelming of just like support and love and comparing my story to theirs. And I was like, felt these like new feelings that I hadn't felt before. And I was like, oh, this is the real stuff. Like this is the stuff that I want to like kind of tap into more and more. And like I said, the racing and the riding is a vessel to get me further, or like more eyes on me to then expand that and help that. But at the same time, it's like, it's not exactly where like all my love is anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just something I'm trying to balance now, and still, obviously I'm still competing and still racing, and I want to get the best out of it. But then also I can like see the future as being like certain things are going to change, and I'm just excited for it all.
Absolutely. I feel like that's so much healthier than being like, this is this is me, this is who I am, this is how I value myself, this is why people love me. You're like, oh, wait, people don't love me because of my skills on a bike. They also love me for my personality and what I bring and lessons I learn. Because if you stop tomorrow mountain bike riding, you're still just as valuable.
Because I think a lot of athletes, they link their identity to their sport. And I think that's a dangerous thing to do, because as soon as your sport's over, it's like, who am I? And then even when you introduce me, it's like you introduce me as like the mountain biker. And I always find it funny when people introduce me as the mountain biker, especially in like a social setting. Yeah. 'Cause I'm always like, who do you think I am now, kind of thing. Like, it's like, because I don't think I'm really, I don't think I'm a normal mountain biker by any stretch. But then it's like, how would you? Because I find it funny when people introduce me as a mountain biker. I'm just like, just I'm a good person. That's like, I'd rather be introduced as a good person. Yeah. Like, not saying that don't. Obviously, you need some context and blah. But I just always found it funny. Like, I would always, I don't know, just like observe certain reactions and how people would react to things. Like, oh, he's a pro mountain biker. I'm like, I wonder what you think how I am now. Because obviously, as soon as you say pro mountain biker, you've got this expectation or image in your own head of who I am. It's just it's a weird thing, but I never think you should get so attached your identity to a sport or whatever, because I think when you obviously lose it, people turn to drinking and drugs and they feel very lost, where I know I kind of felt like I lost it when COVID happened, because it was like a forced retirement almost, like no one could compete and no one could ride. Yeah, gee. And I spent a little bit of time kind of dwelling on like, oh, I've lost it and it's not here and blah, blah, blah. And then once I kind of realized that that wasn't all me and I'm so much more than that, I felt really good. But then it's also this weird thing where it's like, if you're not like, the whole tunnel vision in a thing can be really positive, but it can also make you miss out on so much more of life. And Tony Robbins has this great quote where he says, if you want to take the island, you've got to burn the boats. And that just means if you want to like achieve the goal, you can't have any option Bs. But then like the podcast is kind of an option B, and like public speaking is an option B, and like traveling and interviewing. And I'm like, those boats look kind of nice.
I don't want to burn them.
Kind of don't want to burn those boats. Like, I kind of want to leave them there. But then again, like, your energy is like, you've always got that in your mind. Like, there's like a safety net that you can fall into, which it can sometimes take away from the objective or goal right in front of you.
But it sounds like those, like your podcast and public speaking, aren't option Bs. It sounds like they're just complementary things in your life.
Yeah, but they take time.
Yeah.
They take time and effort.
Yeah,
and that time and effort can bleed into mountain biking and training and time and effort. And that's the thing that I've always been trying to balance, and it is a tricky one.
It is. I can imagine.
Because then even with the podcast, I had a similar thing happen where I got a sponsor for it, and then it altered how I felt about it again.
Yeah.
I kind of like the writing, because then I felt like I had to do it. I felt and right now I'm like talking with a couple of sponsors, and I'm like, I don't want to fall back into that same way of thinking, but I think I've matured enough now that I can deal with it and know, okay, I'm getting paid for this, but I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And if people like it, it'll keep going. But it's not going to be so like, oh, I have to put out an episode. Oh, I have to do this. And then it gets so stuck in one world when I'm still in the racing world.
Totally. Do you know Alex Hormozy?
Yeah.
So he, and I'm sure lots of other people talk about this, but he really talks about how, like, if you're trying to build something, just focus on one thing, one product, one channel, whatever, one avatar. And then I'm always like, that's so hard, because there's so many, things that you want to do that it's hard to be like, just one. What do you think about that?
I think when you're in something, you should give everything to that thing, but I don't think you just have to have the one thing. I think when I'm training, if I'm 100% into that training session when I'm there, like if I go to the gym for an hour, 100% in there, but then I can leave and go work on the podcast, 100% in there. But I think it's good to have different things, or else you can get a bit stagnant on the thing that you're doing, or not feel as positive about a thing, because you're like, oh, I have to do this thing, and you get stuck in that way of thinking, or like it can alter. I think your happiness in a way. And I feel like when you're not happy, you won't perform the best you can.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got an outlet that kind of brings you happiness, like the podcast or photography or whatever it may be, that then if you're, okay, I'm happy now because I got to go shoot some photos. Now I'm going to put 100% into the gym. So I think it can be used as a positive, but I don't think it's a good thing to do 10 different things and give them all 70% or 30% or whatever it is. So I do agree with what he's saying, but I think it's like, if you're doing something, if you think about every time you do something, there's a million other things you could be doing. So I'm like, if you're going to do that thing, put all the energy into that thing or that person or whatever, because you've chosen a million other things not to do. So you could literally do whatever you want pretty much. You could go choose to do anything else, but you're not doing that right now. You're doing this thing with this person. So put 110% into that and make it the best it can be.
We could be doing a million things right now.
You think about it, you could be doing anything else. Like same here. Like I could be surfing, I could be running, I could be in the gym, I could be in Brisbane, I could anything. You could pick anything.
Chose to be here.
So I'm like, let's put the most into this right now.
Yeah. I also think when Alex speaks about that, he's talking more about like businesses, because people will try and be building like 2 businesses at the same time or something. He's like, stop, just focus on one. Whereas like if you have creative, fun outlets, you don't have to just do that, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I do agree with what he's saying, but to a certain extent, he's really good. I like him and Chris Williams. They're both like top level podcasters in my opinion.
100%. They're very logical, very calming how they speak. Apart from Alex, sometimes he'll get really passionate. I'm like, okay.
I think that's good as well though.
Yeah,
have some emotion come through. I love when you sometimes like with the racing as well. The only thing that I've been in where I've found like a flow state when time is altered, when I'm not, like you can't even really describe it. You can just feel it. Like if you haven't felt flow state, it's like this feeling of time's not there. Thoughts aren't there. Everything's just gone blank, and you're just almost in like cruise control, but you're in cruise control doing the most gnarly, crazy thing that you could do, but you're just doing it perfectly. And it's just this state of like, you can't do anything wrong. It's like everything is going to work exactly how it should. And you're not getting tired, you're just in this thing, and it's such a crazy feeling. And I've only felt it probably a handful of times in my entire career.
Wow.
And it's addictive, and you chase it. But then also it's funny because sometimes when I've been speaking with people like really passionately, I've kind of gone in that state where I'm not thinking about what I'm saying, it's just coming out. And something like and I've kind of felt it with when I've done a podcast or with someone, I've been real passionate about something, and it's almost like you're in this state of flow with your words where you're not thinking about what you're saying. It's just coming like from your heart. Like, you know, people say they speak from the heart. It's like that flow state of just like, I can't say anything wrong now. And it's just like, you're almost like, what, like you're almost after you've said it, you're like, holy shit, like that was, where did that come from kind of thing.
Or you'll re-listen and be like, wow, I said that.
Yeah, it all just comes out perfectly. So no, I think I want to try and chase the flow state with racing still, but also with like speaking and podcasting.
Yeah, definitely. The flow state is a beautiful place to be where you're like, where did this time go?
Have you experienced that? Have you been in it?
I've got it when I was running. Like I'll run like 14Ks and then be like, wait, what?
You just zone out. You're just in it.
Yeah, it's like I can't even explain it.
It's addictive. It's really addictive.
Yeah. It's definitely podcasts as well. Like I'll look at the time and be like, it feels like it's been 20 minutes, but it'll be an hour.
Yeah, podcast time is completely altered.
Yeah. So I do have to be mindful because I'm like, I don't want to Joe Rogan people and give them 3 hours of content.
I give them all the goodness they can handle. I'm all for it. Sometimes if I'm talking to someone, it just keeps going. I'm just like, I'm going to stop. Either the person just needs to say we need to stop, like, depending on the person, of course.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing somewhere I know is like a friend, that I'm like, let's just go until it's over kind of thing.
Until we've spoken enough shite.
Yeah, until we've really just scraped the bottom of the barrel, and then we'll just cut it and just done. And
then wham bam, thank you, man. Yeah. There's 2 questions on my mind that are very completely different. But the first question I have is, when you're going down the mountain and you're picking up speed and you're yeeting and skirting, are you ever like, holy fuck? Are you ever like, oh my God, I might die. Oh my God, I might hurt myself. Like, what's going through your mind?
Sometimes in practice, I'll get those nervous feelings. But normally when I'm racing, I seem to be able to shut all that out. Like it's a weird, like I'm a much better racer than I am rider. Like I always said that I was like a B grade rider, but like an A+ racer, where it's just like, I think that comes down to mindset. It's just like I can go in, like I'll practice and it'll be like not terrible, but just not up to my standard, and I'll just be like, oh shit, like you're not killing it right now. And then I'll be like, it's all right, I'll just sorted out my race run, and then I normally can. Like I can turn it around, and that's something that I guess I've always had the ability to do. Like I remember growing up, I would race with people that, in my eyes, were always way faster than me, but I'd always beat them, and I just never really kind of understood as a kid. But then as I got older, I was like, oh, it's just my like race mindset where I can just like I gain 5 or 10%, where they lose that 5 and 10%. They get in their own head, they get nervous, they start doubting themselves, or they put too much pressure on, where I would just be more calm, I guess, and be able to like channel what I needed to do. And I remember for example, like when I was racing in Australia, and a lot of the time if I qualified first, I would normally win every time. So I'd like the extra pressure of going last was like, I used that. I kind of like built on the thing. And it gave me this confidence that then I used that, okay, you are good enough, and like you've already kind of done it. So just do that again. Where if I didn't qualify well, or if I was out the arse, it's just like, oh shit, I gotta start really moving and making something happen. But it would just, it normally wouldn't go as well as when I did qualify first. So I think the pressure thing is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah. Sounds like a superpower to be able to perform under pressure.
Yeah, like the current world champion at the moment, Luke Bruni, he's probably the master of it. He's won world champs, I think six times or something like that, 5 or 6 times. And he's just, the more pressure, put a spotlight on him and he'll just perform. And it's cool. It's really cool to see when you see an athlete that can turn it on like that. Like we've had people like Aaron Gwynn, Sam Hill, and now Luke Bruni, Greg Menard's another one. Like it's just people that are like, okay, the pressure's on, you've got to go, and they just go. And it's a really impressive thing to see, because you see people as well that just crumble as well, like in the same situation. So yeah, hats off to those guys. There's been some incredible times where I've been at races where I've seen people win being the last man down, and the conditions have changed. It may have rained a little bit or something, and it's just like, no way. And then they'll come out and win still. And you're just like, yeah, those are really memorable.
Wow. And are you guys all quite friendly, or is it like a little bit,
No,
sweet on the street, bitch on the pitch?
No, we're all good. It's like the benefit of this is because we don't race against each other. Like it's not contact. Like we're not on a track together. Everyone's pretty chilled.
Yeah, that's good.
It's probably the biggest benefit of not racing head to head is you're not taking out your mate for the win. So we all get along super well, which is good. There's obviously like a bit of rivalry. Rivalry.
Yes, that's the correct word.
Yeah, we got it out. I just got it out because there are R's. Yeah, there's a little bit of that in the pits with certain people, and like there's a bit of like banter and stirring people up, but it's chilled.
Yeah.
It's really good. That's one of the things I love about mountain biking, is that like you be best mates with the person that beats you, because you're racing the clock, you're not racing each other. That's how a lot of people look at it. Yes, it's just a time thing. You're racing the clock and yourself. The other people are just extra characters in the game.
Oh, main character energy.
Yeah, squeeze.
Yes. Speaking about queens, are there queens who do this?
Yeah, there's girls. Yeah.
But do you guys race against them or no?
No, we don't race against them. They have they race the same day, but they'll just go earlier, and they have their own field that they race with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because wait, do you have to have a lot of strength to kind of like steer, and like what's the go?
Yeah, funny. It's because my mates always gave me shit in school, because they're like, "Oh, you race downhill, you don't have to be fit for it. You just roll down a hill," kind of thing, and like would stir me up about it. And you've got to be super fit. It's like you look at a 100-meter sprinter. They've got to run 100 meters, and you're like, that's not that far. You don't have to be that fit. Like look at Usain Bolt, like he's jacked. So we've got like 3.5 minutes, and like if you want to hold on for that amount of time, you've got to be fit.
Wow.
Just get eaten up or spat out. Like they had a race in Fort William in Scotland recently, and it's 4.5 minutes, and it's like by the end of it, your body's fucked. Like it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. In Scotland?
In Scotland. Go have some haggis.
Sorry, I had to do that. So what's
Here for it.
Here for it? What's the type of training that you do for it?
I kind of do a mixture. Like I ride motocross, which is like kind of a good cross trainer. I've got like a road cycle where I like road cycle on the road, which I don't really like because it's scary because cars hit you. I had a friend, Jared Graves, recently got hit by a car. He lives up near Toowoomba. And then another friend got hit by a car recently as well. So I don't like road riding. To me scares me way more than mountain biking.
Wow.
Yeah.
I agree though. I will not do it.
I'm not in control. Someone else can hit me. And I think there's such a stigma in Australia for cyclists, which honestly I don't like a lot of cyclists, because I think they like feel like they own the road, and I probably hate cyclists more than most motorists because I do it. So like cyclists being fuckwits and riding like 3 people across on a road is going to piss off a motorist, and then they're going to go past them like fucking cyclists, and then the next cyclist they see, which is me, who's as far off the road as I can be, they're going to hit him, and then I'm going to die because some other guys have been a fuckwit. So I really dislike when I see cyclists riding so wide
I know.
and
I'm like,
being stupid. But
Yeah.
also in that same breath, I don't think that Australia like gives enough like bike lanes and makes it like easy
Yeah.
enough. Because I'm looking at like Palmy, they're putting the trams in.
yeah.
And I was like, just put in bike lanes and like take money off people's taxes if they ride a cycle to work. Imagine that would like traffic would be like halved. You get people healthier, so you get a healthier lifestyle. Like it's hot, it's warm up here all the time anyway. If you put nice bike lanes going from Palmy to Burleigh or vice versa, like it would encourage, and then encourage them through like giving them like a subsidy or something on like their taxes. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And I just don't understand. It's like, okay, we'll put, because they've already got like the Lime bikes, and I think like that's kind of been a good thing. But then you've got Lime bikes that are just getting like, there's no bike lanes for the Lime bike, so then
Yeah.
they just get trashed and they get like sent off things, and it's like they're kind of doing it, but not really. But yeah, I just think it'd just be safer for cyclists if there was more bike lanes, and it would obviously cut down traffic and people would be healthier. But there's this stigma in Australia about like, if you're a cyclist, fuck you, get off
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah,
Where
there
it's
really
like,
is.
give them their own lane, then you can be separate from them, and then everyone can live a happy little life. Because like when I go to Amsterdam, I normally go once a year because I just love it there, and there's more obviously cyclists than cars, and like you're in the city, but it smells so fresh. Like there's like, you can smell the plants and the trees, and everyone's so happy and everyone's so
Yeah.
healthy, and it's just
Yo, isn't it so clean?
it's so
I always
clean.
tell people this. They're like, what's Amsterdam like? I'm like, it's so clean.
It's so nice. And just the fact that you see so many people, it's just like the bike culture there is such a lovely thing to see. And you just ride everywhere and you're just happy when you're riding a bike. It's just a nice feeling. So yeah, I'd like to see that, more of that, and less like trams and public transport and people just being lazy, and cause you can't scroll your phone when you're riding a bike.
Well, bam, Dean for president.
Nah, I don't want that. So much pressure. I'd age too much. I'd have to do more stuff. I was talking about it on a podcast and change the world through a microphone and then go piss off to Brazil or some remote place.
Somebody's listening that will
Hopefully.
go suggest this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
You've got contacts now. Someone will hear this and
Exactly.
pick up on it and change the world.
Yeah, I think that's a stunning idea, though. Okay, so you were speaking about happiness in Amsterdam. That's the other question I wanted to speak to you about. As thrilling as the bike conversation is, the cycling.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, so I did a podcast with like the bike gets like talked about a bit, and then it's like, all right, beeline to something else.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean your biking. I meant like the bike lanes.
Okay.
But yeah, I did have a feeling. That's why I asked you, because I was like, oh, this dude will have really sick like bike stuff. But I felt like we were having good chats apart from the bike content.
Yeah, I'm like,
you know?
It's funny because I think I live so much of my life when like anyone talks about it at like a bar or something, I'm always like, yep, so I gotta go now, or just like beeline to something else,
yeah,
or like
you're
go
like,
more
boring.
like, but that kind of comes back to, I guess, the whole identity thing and like how I want to be known, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so the topic I want to speak about is happiness.
Yeah.
What's your take on happiness? What has happiness mean to you?
Ooh. What does happiness mean for me? I feel like it's just kind of being content and not expecting anything. Like you're just kind of in this state of just like, what will be is what will be, and just surrendering to where you are in life right now. I think that's I think it's such a happy feeling to not expect anything to happen, or like not really even want anything to happen. Like just be and just like surrender to, okay, we're going through life now and let's just see how it goes. And I think that's I get so much happiness out of that. Like kind of not planning for the future, not expecting all these different things to happen, just kind of just being. I think that's where you get a lot of happiness from. And I think in turn with that, it's like helping other people is where I think you get the most happiness. Or that's where I know I get my like true fulfillment, true happiness. Like I know anything I've ever achieved has made me like a quarter of how happy I've been helping someone else or giving someone something else. So it's like, that's where I want to put the energy back into. But yeah, I say to anyone, it's like, just go like a week where you try and do something for other people instead of yourself. Like the energy you'd put into doing something for yourself, like just try it for a week and like see how it feels. Like see if it feels like the best thing ever. And then maybe that, because it's so good when like you do something for someone and it doesn't even like seem like much, but then because of that, it will like link back. And like I'm living up here with a friend in Palm Beach, and it was just
I'm
because
in Palmy.
it's a good spot. Hey,
It's the best.
but that, and it's happened so many times where like I've ended up living somewhere, and it's like just from helping someone or being a good person, like it comes back around, and it's just that whole thing of like you be rich in people by being a good person, and like all these opportunities will open up, and it might, like you might be nice to someone, then like 10 years later you'll bump into them and they'll be like, oh hey man, and then they're like, do you want this or need that? And you're like, oh actually I really do, and then you're like, oh perfect, and like that will just flow on, and that will keep your happiness levels really really high.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dean arrived at the studio today and he had 2 beautiful gifts for me. Was my reaction good?
Yeah, no.
My housemates say that I'm too easily pleased. I'm like, what do you mean?
You probably got more excited when you saw the motorbike, to be fair. I was like, that's actually yours as well.
Yeah.
Take it, it's yours.
He's basically Oprah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited to see that motorbike. I was like, this is cool. Your coolness levels just went up.
Just went up a little bit. Nice, nice. I'm glad. But happiness is a tricky one as well. Like I post this thing on Instagram every now and again. It's called Life's Good, and I just go part 1 or part 2 or part 3, and I'm up to like part 20 or 19, and I pretty much just get all like the best snippets of like my life in this period of like a month or 2 months or however long it's been. It's kind of like when people do like a photo dump, but it's just so funny because I'm gonna start doing a thing where I'm gonna write Life's Not Always Good part 1. I'm gonna start that because Instagram's this platform of like it almost. Like it's your best self put forward, and it can make other people feel really shit because it's like you just see me traveling the world and living this incredible life and all this good stuff, which like it's not all like you don't want to just be sharing bad stuff, but that's a part of life as well. And I go through like a lot of, like I said, highs and lows, and I think when you do feel a lot of emotion, it can go either way. And I want to kind of just like shine the light on that a little bit as well, and like kind of post some of like I guess my lower points, and then talk about that, like, yeah, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. And I think a thing for me that I realized, like when I, like I said before, the thing I shared on the podcast, like when I was younger, I was like pretty depressed as a young kid, and I felt very lonely, like where I grew up in like a small country, like town, didn't have any friends and was like super lonely and just not happy. And when I think I was 12, I tried to commit suicide, and that was like a big turning point in my life where like my parents found out, and then they moved me out of the school I was in and like put me into this new school, and then I kind of found writing, and then my life started to get better and improve, and went on to obviously be really incredible. But then I got to this point where I had this really strange out of body experience at my 21st birthday where I brought all these people together, and I just was like overwhelmed with happiness that I brought all these people together, and I just achieved this year of racing, which was my best year to date. And it was just like all these positive things happened, and I had this weird out of body experience where it changed my perspective on life and my life and everything. And when I kind of like went back into my body, I just had this like overwhelming want to share that story, like my suicide attempt, and see how, I don't know why it just came back, and I was like, I need to tell people that, because I felt this new level of happiness. So I went from like, and it was like almost like the pendulum had swung back. So like obviously if you suicidal and that's like the lowest low, like you don't want to be here anymore, like it doesn't get any lower than that. So it swung from that to then the happiest I've ever been in my entire life, like literally new levels of happiness that I've never felt. And I was like, I need to share with people where I was and where I am now. And when I shared the story on my friend Jace McAlpine's podcast Gypsy Tales, that was like that's when the reaction to it was like overwhelming with like positivity and people opening up to me. And that's when I was like, holy shit, this is where fulfillment is, like helping other people and using your pain to help other people. Like I've got this thing now where I think like pain's like a flame, and like pain can either be used as like a torch to lead the way for other people. It can be used for a campfire to bring people together and be like an adhesive, or it can be used to burn your whole house down. So it's like you determine what you want to do with that pain, but it can be used for so many different things, but that's up to you. So in that time, I use my pain to like bring people together and then help them in some way instead of burning my house down. So I think it was just this whole thing of like, you can be in a place that's so bad, but then it can switch back and swing back to this positive. And that took 14 years, but it did swing back. And I look at that now as being such a positive thing that happened. And I always say to people that are like struggling right now, like this struggle right now that you are in could one day be the best thing that ever happened to you in the future, but you don't know until that happens. So I'm like, just keep showing up, keep going, keep working towards whatever you're doing. Like keep just getting up and going. Like just keep putting that foot in front of the other, because you don't know how good it could get, but you just got to keep showing up.
Imagine if 12-year-old you could see you right now. Don't you reckon he'd be so proud?
You'd probably be pumped, yeah.
Yeah.
From that like kind of like lonely lost kid that didn't feel like he kind of had anyone to now, like I feel like I've got people like friends and people that love me all around the world, and that's why I feel like I have this obligation now to like share that and help other people, because it's like I feel so loved now, and so like yeah, so it's like why not use that to then help other people.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm tearing up. I've never had this before. Okay. What would you say to somebody who maybe is feeling that low in this moment and is going through a really rough time in their life?
What if it could get better than you could ever imagine? So think of something in your life that you think could be like a massive positive or could become really good, and now think it could get even better than that. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like I guess I dreamt of like being a World Cup racer and all that, but like I never kind of like, you don't know, you want it to happen, but you don't know. But then like it happened, and then I got on podiums, and now I'm good friends with idols. Like they're just my mates now, and I've traveled the world and I've lived this incredible life. I'm like, it's got so much better than what I could have ever imagined. So like think about that thing right now for yourself and go, hey, what if it can get better than that? And then the next thing would be, why not?
Mm.
And I think once you start thinking like that, it's just like, okay, why not me? Like the thing I always tell people, like I'm not special. I'm a high school dropout that.
Are you a high school dropout?
Yeah, I dropped out in year 11 to chase the racing kind of
Really?
thing. And I was never I was never that good at anything really, like to be completely honest. And I always tell people that like I was just like picked one thing, went after it, it worked out, and now I kind of have this experience in this life to be like, because I always tell people like, just find the thing that you want to do, and then just start putting lots of time into it, and it'll make you feel so much better. Like it's hard to be depressed and sad when you have something to put all your energy in, and a lot of the time if it's into someone else, that's even more motivation, because you're like, I'm going to make it up to I'm going to make this person's life better, whether it's like coaching someone or helping someone in some way. Then you feel like you've got this like accountability to be there, and it's like, well, how am I like going to be depressed and sad and not show up if they expect me to be here? And then you start showing up for that person, and then in turn seeing them achieve what they're achieving and uplifting them, that will make you feel better in turn. So it's just like, just find that thing and then just throw everything you got at it and see how it goes. And if that's not your thing, then find a new thing. Like keep finding things, like just try things, be super curious. Like I think we're not curious enough now. We get stuck in, like I said before, this like certain thing that we think we have to do because of our family or our friends, and we never break out of that mold, and we never try and explore new things or adventure or change things up. And I think that's probably one of the saddest things of life, of like you miss out on something that you could have been the best at, or like got so much enjoyment and fulfillment out of because you just didn't try, or you gave up too quickly. Like a lot of the time you're not going to enjoy the thing you start doing because you're going to suck at it at the start.
Yeah.
Like it's never going to be easy. Like I said, I started surfing when I got up here and I sucked at it at the start. Like I guess everyone would.
It's so humbling.
It's so humbling. I love it now because I've gotten to a point where I can surf. But at the start, like you're probably going to hate anything you start at, and you're going to want to quit. But it's like, give it a week, give it a month, and then see. And then once you get over the hump and you like can actually do it, then make a decision whether you want to keep doing it or whether you want to try something else. But yeah, just try something new and just see how it goes.
Oh, that's amazing. So we end with the Fast Five, which is 5 questions, quick, rapid fire. Well, it never ends up being quick, but anyway. But before we go into the Fast Five, is there anything you would like to sprinkle into this podcast?
Just like say thank you for like inviting me in it. Like I know with these podcasts, it's like whenever I want to invite someone in, it's like obviously you feel like something that person can give. So I always like just, thank you for like obviously putting the effort in to do this and then inviting me in to actually like have the conversation. Like that's why like I wanted to bring you the gifts and stuff. Like I guess being on the other side of the microphone and understanding, like I know how like you're putting effort into someone. So it's like I always feel like it's good to give it something back. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Your content and everything you put out there, it's just so genuine. I'm like, we need this man on.
Get in there.
And I finally got you in between like your travels and all of that. I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm only back. I only got another like week or so up here, a bit over that. And then I go to Victoria to do some training in where my like hometown is in Bright. And then after that, I shoot off to Europe for a month and a bit.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Whereabouts in Europe are you going?
I go to Switzerland, a place called Lenzerheide, then Leogang in Austria, and then Innsbruck in Austria, and then Val di Sole in Italy, and then shoot back over. So
Stunning. Oh, I love it. Okay, so the fast five. Don't need to overthink the answers, just whatever comes to your mind the quickest. Okay, the first one is, what is the most life-changing book you've ever read?
Ooh. I don't know if it's okay. So probably the most life-changing would be Lost Connections. Have you heard of that? It's
No.
like a book about like anxiety, depression, and like kind of why you've got that, and like why and triggers to like come out of that. So I read that. Oh, it was a couple of years ago, maybe. I think it's Genoa Hari or something. Genoa Hari, I think, is the author. But I just really enjoyed reading that. I read it was funny because I read The Fifth Vital, which is a book by Mike Malak. He's he's like a podcast guy from America, and the book wasn't really life changing, but it was one of the first books. I'd start reading books and then I'd just get over it and leave it, and that was like I remember I got wrist surgery, I think, and I just had a heap of free time. And I just read it cover to cover, like really quickly. And it was like the first time I'd like smashed out a book in like normally I would get through a book in like a month or
Me too.
yeah, like it would be so long. And it would just be like a couple pages here and there. And like it's hard to get into a story when you're just like drip feeding it.
Yeah.
And I remember I got his book and I read it in like a week or something, or less than a week. And it was like the first time that I'd like just picked up a book, smashed it out. And that book just got me motivated to read more books. Like, I guess that in itself was just like, I was just really happy. Like that book was the book itself, it was like, they had some cool stories and motivational stuff in it, but like not anything like life changing, but just the fact that it motivated me to keep reading was a really positive thing.
Yeah, it's so good when you find, because I used to not be a reader, and then you find like a book that you kind of get into, and then it kind of starts that momentum.
Exactly. I'm reading Tony Robbins. I think it's like Awakening the Giant Within or something, and that's really good. I love Tony Robbins. I think he's such a he's like an idol to me, to what I want to do, just like helping lots of people and just being a positive, uplifting person. So yeah, he's like I used to look up to mountain bike riders. Now I look up to people like Tony Robbins, like Chris Williams, all those kind of guys.
Yeah, no, Tony's great. And I really loved this whole podcast. I've noticed you've used the word fulfillment a lot, because I always think about Tony Robbins' quote where it's like, success without the fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And it's like so true, where like you'll see people who have reached the most successful highs, but then they still feel miserable. And it's because they're successful, but they're not fulfilled.
Yeah, exactly. In their bank, but not in their heart.
That's so beautiful. Stop. You need to write a book.
Yeah, one day maybe. I want to.
Yes.
It'd be a goal. That was something I remember as a kid. I was like, I'd never be able to write a book. And now I started like writing a little bit more recently. And I was like, that'd be cool. Another goal.
Absolutely. I'm excited to read it. Okay. What is your favorite quote?
Oh, I actually heard one recently. I've got so many, but I heard one recently. It was actually by Chris Williams. And it was like, loneliness. How does it go? Loneliness is a sort of tax we have to pay to atone for a certain type of mindset. Or I know this. Have you heard the?
No.
Have you heard that? He's I want to nail this, but I can't think of it.
You can reword it if you want to just get the message across.
Like atone for a certain. I can't think of it. You know when you really just want to nail a quote.
Yeah, it'll come to you at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as soon as like we turned off the thing, it will be like bang, there it is. No, I know it. It's loneliness is a sort of tax we pay to atone for a certain. Oh no! I've lost it again. Damn it! This is like really playing on my head now. Complexity is the word I was looking for. A certain complexity of mind. So it's like loneliness is a tax we pay to atone for a certain complexity of mind.
So is he saying that you kind of have to go through a bit of loneliness to reach a level of success?
Well, I heard that, and then I kind of added this to it, which I think kind of explains it. And this is kind of like, for me, it's like the more we see, the less we see it with.
Oh,
do you get that?
Like as in the higher you climb on the mountain, the less people there are?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like a thing that I've felt in my life. It's like the more successful I got with mountain biking and the different shift in my mind, the less people see what you see. So then it comes back to like safety in numbers, and people like if you stand out from the crowd, you become a bit lonely. But it's because you think your thinking is more complex, so people can't relate to that. So then they're like, oh, you're different, and then that becomes lonely. And that's something that it's been a thing that I guess I've dealt with my entire life in a certain way. I think I created a bit in myself, like being lonely. Like I put, like when I was a kid, obviously when I was younger, and it kind of, that led into the whole depression stuff, was like I was just very lonely, like growing up in small country Vic and being isolated. Like I felt lonely then. And then even points now, like I ride for a French team, so I'm away in Europe and the language barrier and everything, and like there's this loneliness that comes along with that. But that's the kind of tax you're paying to live that lifestyle and do that thing. But like I love and hate that quote at the same time, because it's like I heard it the other day and I was like, I feel like I can relate to that on so many different levels, and I feel like I can relate to that now more than almost ever. So it's a good and a bad thing, because I don't want to not have a complex mind or be different in a way, because I think there's so much like beauty and positive way of being in that. But at the same time, it's like, it's nice just be around people and relate to people in a way. So there's two sides to it. But yeah, I heard that the other day and I was like, I get that. But then yeah, the more you see, the less you see it with, was something that I like kind of like spun off from that.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. I'm really glad that you said that quote, because that's definitely something.
And I like how you said like if you climb a mountain, there's only going to be a certain amount of people that want to climb that mountain with you.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so interesting, because loneliness sucks, but then it's also like, yeah, I get that. Because like I'll go and like socialize with like people my age, and then I'll be like, but don't we want to be talking about this and this? And then people kind of talking about like normal stuff, and I'm like, fuck, I just can't relate.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to be here like I'm better than you. It's not that at all.
Well,
it's
it comes
more
back to
just like
different.
it's just different,
Yeah.
and you just want to have different conversations. But that's why the podcast is great, because then I can connect with people who I'm like, you're just as crazy as me.
Well, that's why I moved. That was a big part of me moving up here, was that I just wanted to be around more like-minded people.
Yeah, Gold Coast is filled with people like that.
It's funny because I've like somehow like got into this group of friends where it's like Corey Tunison, do you know Harry Bink? Harry Bink's a motocross guy.
Yeah.
And then obviously Cooper. And it was just funny that I started hanging out with all these guys, and it was just this weird thing where we were like having dinner one time. I was like, we got the pro motocross rider, we got the pro mountain biker, we got the pro wakeboarder, we got the pro surfer, and it was like all together, but we're all not those things. Like we're all different. Like yes, we do that, but that's not our identity, and we don't come into that group like we kind of don't care about it. Like I don't like. It's cool that we all do that thing, but no one gives a shit, which is actually such a nice, refreshing thing to be around people. Like, yeah, they don't give a fuck. Like, you're like the best in the world at this, but you want to come hit some golf balls and want to go like get some food. It was just like it was a real refreshing feeling, and then being in that group and being able to like tell stories that then they could relate to in such a similar way was like, yeah, it was really refreshing. And I really enjoyed being up. I really enjoy being up here, and really like it.
There's a special energy on the Gold Coast.
There definitely is. I think it's one of the best places in the entire world. Like I've traveled a lot and I come here and it's just like something about it that's just another level.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, we love it. I swear every single second podcast I'm always talking about how great the Gold Coast is.
It is. Just
the listeners are like, fine, I'll move there.
Actually, I was going to say, don't say it. It's like, it's not that good.
Yeah, don't move here.
It's not that good. Stay home. Stay home.
Okay, next question I have for you is, what is your definition of success?
Definition of success. I think that's just giving 100%, like giving 100% in the thing that you're doing, I think is success, like within yourself. Like you can only know if you're successful within yourself. Like I really don't believe that because your name's at the top of a sheet of paper that means you're successful, or like you have, like you said, the money in the bank and all that. Like I think that comes back to, you see people that are uber wealthy but they're depressed, and I'm like, yeah, you really successful? Like I think it's giving everything into something within yourself and then being truly happy for that. I think that is when you are successful, and I think the rest will just fall into place. I think it's I don't think it's results on paper or money in the bank. I think it's just like this feeling within that you can't really describe or even should try and describe. But it's like if you can pull that out of you and then do that, it's almost like comes back to that kind of flow state of like doing something and being so present in that thing. I think that's when you're successful. Like I said, like I've crashed in race runs, but I've felt that flow state. And I was like, that was a win. That was a win. That was more of a win than when I've actually come down and not crashed and done well. So it's just funny. I think that's really successful.
Yeah. I like.
But that is a tricky one.
Yeah, the tricky one.
I think success, the whole idea of success, because it can be so like misconstrued and altered in different ways. So yeah, success is a tricky one.
It is. And back to Alex Hormozy, he's like, big fan of his work, clearly. He's like, you're successful the moment you decide you're successful.
Yeah.
He's like, if you put a number on it, you'll always move the goalpost.
Well, I've got a thing that I've been kind of playing around with recently that I like to ask people. It's like, what is enough? And that can be used with so many, like, okay, what's enough money? What are enough, like, how many girlfriends is enough? How many watches is enough? At what point are you just going to go, hey, like, that's enough. I don't need to do that anymore. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, actually, and he's got a camper van business where he decks out vans and buses and stuff. And I was like, he's like, oh, but like we're filled up with work at the moment. I was like, oh, you're going to put more people on and grow the business? And he's like, no, I'm happy doing this. I can make enough money that I can live the lifestyle I want to live. That's fine. And I was like, that's so cool that you've gotten to a point where, his name's Michael Fortley, where you've gotten to a point now where you're just content and happy, and that's enough. You don't want this huge business where you want to keep growing and have like, more money, more problems, more things to worry about, more stress. You're just like, no, this is me. Workers are happy. I'm happy. That's enough. And once you get to that, like, what's enough? I think it's like, again, it's like, that's where you can get success, knowing what enough is.
Wow, that's so, so true. Growing up, my dad would always say, the more you have, the more you have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful he always like honed that in, because if I want to like get something, I'm so bad at buying stuff, because I'm like, yeah, but it's just another thing I have to own. It's another thing I have to pack up when I move.
Yeah, being a minimalist is it's a nice trait to have.
It is great. Apart from like, I really do not have enough clothes. Like, I'll always borrow off my girlfriends, and they're like, okay, you really need some clothes in. But apart from that, it's great. There's this like beautiful little video I watch. I'm sure you've probably seen it as well, where it's like this person goes over to this rich person's house for dinner, and he has like a massive mansion and all this art and everything. And then it's like somebody says like, oh yeah, this person has everything. And then he's like, oh no, he doesn't have everything. And then they're like, oh, what doesn't he have? And he's like, he'll never have enough or something, where it's like, I said that so badly. But it's basically the concept of this guy has quote unquote everything, but because he's always striving for another car or another private jet or whatever.
I've heard that the person says, I've got something he'll never have.
Oh, I'll get something he'll never have. And then
that's enough. I have enough.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I heard Jimmy Carr talk about that.
Yeah. Yep. There we go. I was like, oh, that's so cute.
But it's like once you become content with where you're at in life, and you're like, okay, this is me. Like, and it's nice. Like, it's so good to strive towards something. Like, I shouldn't, like, saying that, it's like, enough could still be like 5-time world champion. Like, that's your enough.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean don't strive for something. Don't try and better yourself. But I think when you get to a point, it's just like, you can go, okay, this is me. I'm happy. And then I think you should just be like content with that.
Yeah, because then you're coming from a place of contentment, because I had a chat with myself, and I was like, Andy, you literally have everything you could ever want in your life. And I know that sounds like so weird, because it's like, what? But I'm literally like, all your basic needs are met. You have the most beautiful people in your life. You have the most amazing opportunities. Yeah, there's areas where you want to freaking grow in, but like, you already have everything. So it's like coming from a place of like a better place.
Exactly. I think in this day and age as well, where like likes and views are so sought after, that like, okay, what's enough likes? You get 1,000 likes, you get 1,000 views, you get 10,000 views. What's enough?
I thought likes were disappeared.
But you're still getting them. Like,
okay.
Like, it's still like it's a metric to like go off. But like views, for example, okay, or listens on the podcast.
Yeah.
You're like at the start, you're like, oh, I hope I get like 1,000 views or whatever, or listens, and then you get to that, and you're like, okay, now I hope I get 10,000. It's just like, okay, what's enough? Like, what's enough at that point?
So true.
It is difficult when it becomes a job, and then you kind of like linking that into then more money, but then that's also like, okay, yeah, no, it's just it's a bit of a rabbit hole when it comes down to that. But yeah, I just think you should look at what you've got and not be always so hungry for the next thing when you can just be content with where you're at.
Yeah. Okay, well, this hasn't been the fast five, but that's fine.
The medium speed 5.
Yeah. Okay. If you had to wait, how many questions have I asked? 3 or 4? 4. 3.
I don't know.
4.
How many do you have in your head right now?
I have.
You've got more than 5. I'm open to take more questions.
Me not being able to count.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. That's nothing's coming like straight to mind. Actually, no, I've got one. I've got one from my dad that I think this is probably the best. I remember when we were younger, he said to me, he's like, it doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how fit you are, doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter about all this. All that matters is how bad you want that thing. So I think it's like, no matter where you are in life in general, like what your circumstances are, if you want something bad enough, you will get that thing. No matter like how many people are ahead of you financially, physically, or whatever, it's like that want. And I think that want is what separates a lot of people. Because like I said, like I'm not special. I think I was in some aspects far behind a lot of other people that are not doing what I'm doing right now and not far ahead now. But it's because I saw something and I wanted it. And I like got so obsessed and attached to that thing that I think that's why I said before, like people need that thing. I think that thing will pull them out of wherever they are, whether it be a good or a bad thing. It'll pull you towards something. So yeah, just that having that want, I think is really important. So yeah, I remember as a kid that kind of stuck with me, that he's like, it doesn't matter about all this other stuff. As long as you want that thing and how bad you want that thing, you will get that thing. So yeah.
What a king.
Yeah.
Oh, he sounds amazing.
That was another positive. Like I grew up in a very loving family. Like my parents were awesome. Like definitely like different ends of the spectrum with like certain things like mum and dad, but dad was dad, for example, like when I grew up, dad built a helicopter from scratch out of boxes and then learned how to fly it while he built it and then started flying helicopters. So that was like
He built a helicopter.
Literally from scratch. Yeah.
What?
He ordered it. It was like called a Roadaway and you could buy it in like a kit, like boxes in a kit, and then you could assemble it yourself and then learn to fly it. And he brought that, and I was like a kid when this was happening. So like you imagine you have a father figure in your life that's building helicopters from scratch. And he invented a sawmill that he sold around the world that went global, that he made a lot of money out of. So my dad was like, he was an inventor that just kind of, that knew you could do more if you put your mind to it. And that way of being, he never like, he obviously said stuff that like sunk in and stuck with me like that, but it was just seeing him, like just by his actions of what he did was like such a motivational thing. And then my mum on the other side, she was like so loving and caring. So it was like this, dad was like definitely more on the masculine side and like very hands-on, switched on, like you can. And then mum was very caring and loving. And it's kind of funny because I like, you know, when you kind of end up being exactly both of your parents in a way, like you take their like kind of their good traits and come together. And it's just funny how, that kind of worked out. Like I see so much of myself in my mum in myself and my dad in myself in different ways. But yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I had a really good family and upbringing and a really cool, loving brother as well. Yeah, my whole family was, I love my family.
Oh, really shout out to Dean's family. They'll be listening because they're supportive. No, I'm kidding.
Send them the link.
They're probably like, God, another podcast, Dean, come on. Okay, the last question I have for you is if you could embed a habit or a mindset into the listeners' ears to make them a better human, they're already amazing, but extra better, what would it be?
Embed a habit.
Embed a habit or a mindset.
They've got to do. I'd say probably just meditate, like be in your own thoughts, like just take time to yourself. Take time to yourself and understand yourself better. Like there's so many of us don't actually understand ourselves enough to know what we actually want to do. Like there's this whole idea of I, we, and all, and it's this concept of we have it backwards where it's all we and I. So we all focus on the outside world, social media, everything around us, all of that. That's our first focus. And then the second would be like a relationship, like between like either like work colleagues or a partner or whatever. And then the last one we focus on is ourselves. So it's like you're trying to understand yourself after going through the order of coming backwards, where it should be like I. So it's like yourself first. You understand yourself, what you need, what you want to do, who you want to be around, all of that. Okay, we're solid. We're good. I get it. Now you and your relationship with your partner, with your family, with everything, now work on that, because you already know who you are as a person. You know what you want to do. So now you can actually give yourself properly to someone else. And then once you've sorted that out and you're good with your family, your close ones, then go out to the rest of the world and then go deal with that. But you're only going to know yourself from obviously like being in your own thoughts and meditating and being and understanding yourself. So I think that's something you do. It's something I need to do more. I'm actually seeing a meditational coach at the moment. So I was actually on a phone call before I came here, trying to get in my own head and understand my thoughts and feelings. And yeah, so I'm like, it's something I'm trying to put more effort into, but it's something that like everything that's good for you kind of find resistance for and reasons not to do it and things to fill that gap instead. So I'm like actively trying to shift that way of thinking and being. But yeah, I think meditation is just like beneficial to everyone. So I think, yeah, try that.
That was the best reason to meditate I've ever heard. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts that say like meditate. Genuinely.
Oh, cool.
That was ace.
Perfect.
Perfecto.
Brought some good energy. I'm being happy I went for a ride this morning, and you know, you said before, like if you still care about the whole like riding thing and stuff, and like I have days where like I went riding this morning and I just had heaps of fun. Absolutely loved it. Like, and then I came back and I'm seeing this girl at the moment, and she's like just been like a real positive impact on me as well, and like that's going really well. So it's like all these like positive things, and just like my house life, just like a lot of when a lot of good things come together. I always like doing a podcast like this when the rest of my life is really like in tune and going towards like the right direction, because I know when I am my best happy self, like I can say and do things and just like be, I don't know, like it just like you generate this energy that then can like rub off on people. So when you like, oh, come in today, I was like, we picked a good day. I'm feeling good.
Yes.
This is the time.
100%. Yeah, when you're shining, it shines onto the world.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of things are making me shine at the moment, which is good.
We love a good shine.
We love a good shine.
So if people want to find you on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle?
Dinos Mykonos. Have no relation to anything to do with Mykonos. People always ask if I was born there or I'm Greek or whatever, but
like no.
So no, I had a friend call me Mykonos for a while, so I thought Dinos Mykonos was the one. It used to be Dinos Machinos, but because a friend made it for me when I was in high school, and they thought that was funny. They just called me that on the bus, like Dinos Machinos. So then I was like, well, that's got to be my Insta name. And then I've matured from a Machinos to a Mykonos. And
yeah, we love.
That could turn into something else, who knows. So I've got that, and then I've got the Off Track Experience is my podcast I run. So that's something I've been trying to put more energy into. And yeah, if you like listening to this, that's more of that and more of me talking to other cool people. And I also I want to give a shout out to the girl I'm seeing at the moment, Dawn Sanctum. She's been helping me out. She's going to help me with like a studio for the podcast and stuff.
What a queen.
She does hair and stuff like that. So we're trying to make this like, so she's like, does like Reiki healing and Kahuna massage and like hair and makeup. And she's just like she really,
she does everything.
She's like me. She really likes to just like help other people. Like she's just like one of those people that just like come and like, I'll make you feel good in whatever way I can. So, and then we were chatting because she's got like a spare room at like where her like kind of studio thing is. And it's like, it'd be cool to set up a podcast studio there. And then you obviously get people that you could talk to, and even I could bring people there to talk to. So yeah, she's been like really beneficial and really helpful with that. So yeah, big shout out to Dawn Sanctum.
Shout out to Dawn. Sanctum?
That's the name of a business. Her name.
Oh!
Tiana Popik's her actual name, but Dawn Sanctum's like her brand.
Okay, I was like, wow, that's like a really unique name.
It's like an old name, yeah. No,
I was like, how old is she?
Her business is Dawn Sanctum. Her actual name is Tiana Popik is her real name.
I was like, I know age is just a number, but she sounds old. Yeah. Okay, perfect. We have all the Instagram handles.
We got all the goodness.
If you guys did enjoy this, feel free to screenshot it, put it on your stories, and share it around. Tag us, as we'd love to know who is listening. The podcast Instagram is Attitudes with Andy, so come party there. It's a bit of a vibe.
I feel like I should have brought more attitude. I brought a bit of sass with the motorbike, but that was about it. It was so funny when that dawned on me, when I was just like, I was on my ride this morning because I was like, Attitudes with Andy. It's like, I'm the attitude. And like, it was like this penny drop moment. And then I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm like, how much attitude do you bring?
Okay, we need to wrap this up. It's getting weird. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You're an absolute vibe.
Oh, thank you.
The vibes are there.
Appreciate it. Knuckles, we just became
La
best
la
friends.
la
We became
la.
best friends again.
Yeah, we did. We did. Anyway, thanks guys for listening. I'll see you guys next week for another episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
I was like, how do I end this?